Have you ever wondered about the unsolved mysteries of history's most enigmatic figures? Join us as we dive into the unknown and explore the lives of history's most mysterious people to ever live. But before we jump into all that, be sure to comment below the most mysterious person that you've ever heard about, or if you think that I forgot anybody on this list. And without any further wasting your time, basically let's just jump right into it. So first up is Yasuke, or Yasuke, depending on how you say it. And Yasuke was a man of African origin who served as a retainer and a weapon bearer to the Japanese daimyo Oda Nobunaga. Yasuke arrived in Japan in 1579 in service of the Italian Jesuit missionary Alessandro Villano, who had been appointed as the visitor or inspector of the Jesuit missions in the Indies, which at that time covered East Africa, Southeast, and East Asia, so that entire region. He accompanied Villano when the latter came to the capital area in March of 1581, and his appearance caused much interest with the local people. Basically, most of you would think that they never saw black people at this point, and you'll see why. When Yasuke was presented to Oda Nobunaga, the Japanese daimyo thought that his skin must have been covered with black ink, like anybody this dark they had never seen, and they literally thought that he just dyed his skin with actual ink. So much to the point that basically Nobunaga had him stripped from the waist up and made him scrub his skin to see if it would come off. These events are recorded in a 1581 letter of the Jesuit Luis Frois to Lorenzo Messia, and in the 1582 annual report of the Jesuit missionary in Japan, also by Frois. So two separate accounts that document this event. So there's a little bit of proof that actually says that this actually happened, you know what I mean? Now, these events and everything, like I just said, were all published in letters that the priests and brothers of the Society of Jesus will write from the kingdoms of Japan and China II, or mostly just known as the cartas is what they usually just call it. So that's what I'm going to call it. And basically, when Nobunaga realized that the African skin was actually just naturally black, he took a real interest into him, okay? Lord Nobunaga Chronicle corroborates Froiss's account also, and it describes the meeting like this. On the 23rd of the second month, which was actually the 23rd of March in 1581, a black page came from the Christian countries. The man was described as robust, black as a bull, and of fine character, so they didn't mind the guy at all. Nobunaga's nephew gave him a sum of money at this first meeting, so they even gave him some money. You know what I mean? On the 14th of May, Yasuke departed from Echizen province with Frois and the other Christians. During this trip, they met with local warlords such as Shibata Katsuyo, Hashiba Hideskitsu, and Shibata Katsuya. They returned to Kyoto on the 30th of May, and trust me, I know I probably just butchered those names. My bad. It is likely that Yasuke could speak or was taught Japanese, perhaps due to Villano's efforts to ensure that his missionaries adapted well to the local culture. So Yasuke also spoke or could write Japanese. He could translate with them at some point. Nobunaga enjoyed talking with him. There is no indication that Nobunaga actually spoke Portuguese, and basically that's why it would be more likely that Yasuke would have been able to communicate in classical Chinese or basic Japanese at the time. He was also perhaps the only non-Japanese retainer that Nobunaga had in his service, which could explain Nobunaga's interest in him. Yasuke was mentioned in a variant of text in the Shinsho-ki owned by Sonkekiku Bunko in the archives of the Madia clan. I am sorry, dude. I am really trying with these names. I'm not used to saying these names unless it's like an anime, dude, you know? But even then, I'm like, come on. According to this, the black man named Yasuke was given his own residence and a short ceremonial katana by Nobunaga. Nobunaga also assigned him with the duty of weapon bearer. After the Battle of Tenmokuzan, Nobunaga led his forces, including Yasuke, and inspected the former territory of the Takeda clan. On his way back, he met Tokugawa Ieyasu. I think I said that right. Matsudera Iyada, the retainer of the Ieyasu, described Yasuke as 6 shaku, 2 sun. It equals out to about 6 feet and 2 inches, or about 188 centimeters. He was black and his skin was like charcoal, okay? This was exact words from Matsudera stating that he was named Yasuke, okay? That was his description of Yasuke. And in June 1582, Nobunaga was attacked and forced to commit seppuku in Honnoji in Kyoto by the army of Akechi Mitsuri. So basically, he was made to, unalive himself. Yasuke was there at the time and helped fight the Akechi forces, Immediately after Nobunaga's death though, Yasuke went to join Nobunaga's heir Oda Nobutada, who was trying to rally the Oda forces at Nijo Castle. Yasuke fought alongside the Nobutada forces but was eventually captured. When Yasuke was presented to Akechi, the warlord allegedly said that the black man was an animal as well as not Japanese and thus should not be killed but instead taken to the Christian church in Kyoto called the Nanbanji. However, there is some doubt regarding the credibility of this fate, and basically there is no further information about him after this. Like, there's just no more information, you know what I mean? That's really all I could find. There's like, you know, like I said, really not much. There is an anime that just came out. If anybody watched that, it's on Netflix. I haven't watched it yet, so I have no clue, but it's supposedly supposed to be about this. It's actually by the exact name, Yasuke or Yasuke, whatever. But anyways, moving on. Hopefully I don't mess up the pronunciation as much, so let's pray for that. Up next is the Man in the Iron Mask. During the reign of King Louis XIV, an enigmatic man spent several decades confined to the Bastille and other French prisons. No one knew his identity or why he was in jail. Even stranger, no one ever knew what he looked like. The prisoner was never seen without a black velvet mask covering his face. The anonymous prisoner has since inspired countless stories and legends. Writing by Voltaire and Alexandre Dumas helped popularize the myth that his mask was actually made out of iron, yet most historians still agree that he actually existed. So the real question was, who was he? Hundreds of different candidates have been proposed, ranging from a member of the royal family to a disgraced French general and even the playwright Molière. Still, evidence indicates that only 2 prisoners were in custody during the same time frame as the mask: Ercole Mathol and Eustache Dogger. Matholi was an Italian count who was abducted and jailed after he tried to double-cross Louis XIV during political negotiations in the late 1670s. He was a longtime prisoner, and his name is similar to Marchioli, which is the alias under which the mask was actually buried. So they're basically thinking that his name is kind of similar enough to the point where they might have just used this as a different alias. So even more convincing is that Louis XV and Louis XVI both supposedly said that the mask was an Italian nobleman. So kind of adds more credit to that. Unfortunately, Malihold likely died in 1694, several years too early for him to become the mask. With this in mind though, many point to the enigmatic Eustache Dogger as this more likely culprit. First off, the fact that his name is Eustache, like it's literally one letter off from mustache. I don't know, to me that's crazy. Like, I'm glad we moved away from names like that. If you are named Eustache, shout out to you. I'm not saying I hate your name, but the confidence you gotta have, bro, unreal. His 1669 arrest warrant included a letter from a royal minister instructing jailers to restrict his contact with others and to threaten him with death if he speaks one word except for his actual needs. Basically, this guy was a complete menace to them. Dogger was frequently shepherded between several prisons and once was transported in a covered chair so that passersby would not even be able to see his face. So a lot of this is kind of adding up to that, you know what I mean? While Dogger is a popular candidate for being the mask, historians still don't know if he was or if his name is just a pseudonym. One theory holds that he was a lowly valet implicated in a political scandal, but he's also been identified as a debauched nobleman, a failed assassin, and even the twin brother of Louis XIV. Basically, nobody really knows exactly what this guy is because there's been so many different rumors about him, you know what I mean? To the point where who knows what to believe. But this thing is that there was still a guy underneath a velvet mask. It wasn't iron, but you know, there was a guy and he was locked up for multiple decades, and to this day we still don't know exactly who it was, but these are the 2 most likely candidates. Up next are the Green Children of Woolpit. The 12th century tale of the Green Children of Woolpit in Suffolk is a bizarre medieval folk story which has been remembered for multiple generations. It isn't too often that we hear of children appearing at the edge of a field with green-tinged skin and no knowledge of any locally known languages. Even today, historians debate as to whether there was any truth to the story at all, some going as far as to claim it describes an extraterrestrial encounter, basically have these people thinking this is ancient aliens. The legend itself posits that green children of Woolpit were a boy and his sister found by reapers working in the fields at harvest time near some ditches that had been excavated to trap wolves at St. Mary's of the Wolf's Pit. Surprisingly, their skin was tinged with a green hue, their clothes were made from unfamiliar materials, and their speech was unintelligible to the reapers. Basically, had no clue what they were saying. The feral children were taken to the village where they were eventually accepted into the home of a local landowner, Sir Richard de Caen at Wilkes. The children would not eat any food presented to them, even though they appeared to be starving. Eventually, the villagers brought round recently harvested beans, which the children ended up devouring, so apparently they love beans. They survived only on beans for many months until they acquired a taste for just regular bread. The boy became sick and soon succumbed to illness and died. Alright, RIP to him. While the girl remained in good health and eventually lost her green tinged skin, so coming kind of back to normal, you know what I mean? Over the coming years, she learned how to speak English and was later married to a man at King's Lynn in the neighboring county of Norfolk. And according to some accounts, she took the name Agnes Barr, and the man she married was an ambassador of Henry II, although these details have not been verified, and apparently that's just a big rumor about her. After she learned how to speak English, she relayed the story of their origins. The girl reported that she and her brother came from a strange underground land, which she called the Land of St. Martin. Alright, this is where shit gets weird. In it, there was no sun, but a perpetual twilight. Like them, all the inhabitants of St. Martin's Land lived underground and were green just like them. She described another luminous land that could be seen across a river. The girl explained that she and her brother were looking after their father's flock when they basically came upon a cave. Alright, this is her story too, you have to remember that. Upon entering the cave, they wandered through the darkness for a very long time until, following the sound of some bells, they came out on the other side, entering a bright sunlight which they found startling. Alright, because clearly if they never saw sunlight, this would be weird to them. It was then that they were found by the Reapers. Over the centuries, many theories have been put forward to explain the strange story of the green children of Woolpit. Regarding their green coloring, one proposal is that the children were suffering from a condition known as hypochromic anemia, originally known as chlorosis, coming from the Greek word of chloros meaning greenish color, or greenish yellow actually. Chlorosis is caused by a very poor diet that affects the color of red blood cells and then results in a noticeably green shade of the skin. Basically, if you see your skin turning green, you are sick, dude, alright? In support of this theory is the fact that the girl is described as returning to a normal color after adopting a healthy diet. With regards to the girl's description of the strange land, Paul Harris suggested that the children were Flemish orphans, possibly from a nearby place known as Fornham St. Martin, which was separated from Woolpit by the River Lark. A lot of Flemish immigrants had arrived during the 12th century, but were persecuted under the reign of King Henry II, and in 1173, many were killed near Bury St. Edmunds. Since it was first recorded, the story of the green children of Woolpit has endured over 8 centuries. Dude, that's 800 years. That's crazy. And while the real facts behind the story may never be known, it has provided inspiration for numerous poems, novels, operas, and plays across the world, and continues to capture the imagination of many curious minds. And that was it for this video. Kind of short, but I didn't want this video to be too long. Anyways, I'm starting a whole series with the most mysterious people to ever exist or to ever live, however you want to say it. And yeah, just make sure you stay tuned for that. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if there's a mysterious person that you want me to talk about or explain more, just let me know. I'll definitely get to them all. Trust me, I got at least 2 or 3 more videos with people that I already got ready to go. So we'll get to that eventually. But other than that, stay safe, stay dangerous, get laid. I'll see y'all later. Deuces.